This newsreel is being brought to you by American Tire. This is Jim Ball reporting at the Center in downtown Springfield. And what you're about to see is the most impressive reproduction of Dr. King's speech you'll ever see.
Score years ago, a great American in whose symbolic shadow we stand signed the Emancipation Proclamation. This momentous decree came as a great beacon light of hope to millions of Negro slaves who've been seared in the flames of withering injustice. It came as a joyous daybreak to a long night of captivity. But 100 years later, we must face the tragic fact that the Negro is still not free. 100 years later, the life of the Negro is still sadly crippled by the manacles of segregation and chains of discrimination. 100 years later, the Negro lives on a lonely island of poverty in the midst of a vast ocean of material prosperity. 100 years later, the Negro is still languished on the corners of American society and finds himself in exile in his own land. So we've come here today to dramatize an appalling condition. In a sense, we've come to our nation's capital to cash a check. When the architects of this great republic wrote the magnificent words of the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, they were signing a promissory note to which all Americans were to fall down. This was a promise that all men would be guaranteed the inalienable rights of life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. It is obvious today, my friends, that America has defaulted on this promissory note in so much as the citizens of color are concerned. America has given the Negro people a bad check, a check which has come back more insufficient funds. But we refuse to believe that the great banks of justice is bankrupt. We refuse to believe that there are insufficient funds in the great vaults of opportunity of this nation. So we've come to this hallowed spot to remind America of the fierce urgency of now. This is no time to engage in the luxury of cooling off, or to take the tranquilizing drug of gradualism. Now's the time to make real the promises of democracy. Now's the time to rise from the dark and desolate valley of segregation to the sunlit path of racial justice. Now's the time to open the doors of opportunity to all of God's children. Now's the time to lift our nation from the quicksands of racial injustice to the solid rock of brotherhood. Now is that time. It would be fatal for the nation to overlook the urgency of the movement and to underestimate the determination of the Negro. This sweltering summer of the Negro's legitimate discontent will not pass until there's an invigorating autumn of freedom and justice. 1963 is not an end, but a beginning. Those who hoped that the Negro needed to blow off steam and would now be content will have a rude awakening if this nation should return to business as usual. There will be neither rest nor tranquility in America until the Negro is granted his citizenship rights. The whirlwinds of revolt shall continue to shake the foundations of this nation until the bright day of justice emerges. But there is something that I must say to my people. Those who stand on the warm thresholds which leads into the palace of racial justice. In the process of gaining our rightful place, we must not be guilty of wrongful deeds. We must continue to fight the transgressions with dignity and discipline. We must not allow our creative protests to degenerate into physical violence. Again and again, we must rise to the majestic heights of meeting physical force with soul force. There are those who are asking the devotees of civil rights, when will you be satisfied? We will never be satisfied as long as our bodies, heavy with fatigue of travel, cannot gain lodging in the motels of the highways and the hotels of the cities. We can never be satisfied as long as the Negro's basic mobility is from a smaller ghetto to a larger one. No, we're not satisfied. We cannot be satisfied as long as the Negro in Mississippi cannot vote and the Negro in New York believes he has nothing in which to vote. No, we're not satisfied. And we will not be satisfied until justice rules like waters and righteousness like a mighty stream. I am not unmindful that some of you have come here out of great trials and tribulations. Some of you have come from places where your quest for freedom has left you battered by the storms of persecution and staggered by the winds of police brutality. You have been the veterans of a creative suffering. Continue to work with the faith that unearned suffering is redemptive. Go back to Mississippi. Go back to Alabama. Go back to Georgia. Go back to Louisiana. Go back to the slums and the ghettos of our northern cities, knowing that somehow this can and will be changed. Let us not wallow in the valley of despair. I say to you today, my friends, so even though we face the difficulties and the frustrations of the moment, I still have a dream.
All right.
It is a dream deeply rooted in the American dream. I have a dream today. I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, sons of former slaves and sons of former slave owners will be able to sit down at the table of brotherhood together. I have a dream that even in the state of Mississippi, a desert state, sweltering with the heat of injustice, sweltering with the heat of oppression, will be transformed into an oasis of freedom, an oasis of justice. I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have that dream today. I have a dream that one day we will all be able to sing with a new meaning. My country, 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty of thee I sing. Land where my fathers cry, land where the pilgrims cry. From every mountainside, let freedom ring. And if America is to be a great nation, this must become true. So let freedom ring. From the prodigious hilltops of New Hampshire, let freedom ring. From the mighty mountains of New York, let freedom ring. From the snow-capped Rockies of Colorado, let freedom ring. From Stone Mountain in Georgia, from Lookout Mountain of Tennessee, from every hill and molehill of Mississippi, from every mountainside, let freedom ring. And when we let it ring, we'll let it ring from every village and every hamlet, from every state and every city. We'll speed up that day when all of God's children, black men, white men, Jews, Gentiles, Protestants, and Catholics will be able to join hands and sing the words of that old Negro spiritual. Free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, I'm free at last.
Thank you, Mr. Pitt. That's awesome.
First, I want to say it was very impressive. I've seen this speech a few times myself, so I'm not an expert, but you did it in all the way that the way you paused at the beginning, your opening, the whole delivery of it was very impressive. I'm going to gather that probably wasn't your first time, but I'm hoping you'll just talk to me about what goes into doing such an amazing performance like that.
Well, first you have to read and interpret and internalize the actual speech. I've read the text several times and studied Martin. I'm a speech communication and theater major from Tennessee State, so I've learned to internalize the lyrics and the text and then the person, and I try to bring them both together inside of me. And you study the time and the struggle that they went through, and after that you pull it together and you're able to, through prayer, I do pray before I do it, and try to bring what was then now.
I noticed at some points there's a fine line between talking and singing. And it seems like you're right in the middle, almost singing, talking, singing. Is there some method there?
Intonation, that's what it's called. Also, you allow yourself to feel what you're doing, and you allow the speech to take over sometimes. You try to bring about some characterization also. I try to mentally make myself Martin, and he being a Baptist preacher, would sometimes allow the same characteristics to come through. So in trying to become Martin, that does happen.
You ever find yourself a little intimidated by the power of that speech?
Always. I am always nervous before I do it, and I try to not make him ashamed of what I do. So I always get a little nervous, and I try to make it where if he was here, he would be proud to hear.
I think he would be.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Don't let this happen to you. We've all heard this sound before. Take your car to American Tire before it's too late. Don't sit there and stare at that check engine light. It's time to do something about it. Take it to American Tire and have them look under the hood. They'll get you on the road, and they'll keep you there too. Go like their Facebook page to see special offers and discounts. The link is below this video.